If you haven't seen Disney's The Hunchback of Notre Dame, please watch the movie before you watch this episode, because spoilers will be in this episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the MJ Innocent podcast. I'm your host, Moonwalker Tanya. Okay, so even though I've been a Michael Jackson fan for over 30 years, it's still amazing how we can still learn things about Michael. And obviously, I don't try to pretend that I know everything about him because I don't think any of us could make that claim. But last month, I found out that Michael wanted to be the voice of Quasimodo in Disney's The Hunchback of Notre Dame. And I did not know that. And I just want to say thank you to my friend Exits Ren for giving me this information. And on February 25th, we discussed this on Teresa's live stream. Now, unfortunately, I wasn't really prepared to talk about it on the stream, but after the stream, I was thinking of other things to say about it that I didn't think about on the stream. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play for you the discussion we had, and then I'm going to mention some other things that I thought of. All right, let's do it.
What? No. Ren and I were talking about making a video together talking about how we can see similarities between Quasimodo from the Hunchback of Notre Dame and Michael Jackson.
I don't know who that person is, but okay.
You never saw that movie from Disney?
No, what is it called again? I'll look it up.
The Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Of Notre.
Yeah.
Okay.
Came out in like 1996, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I never seen it. I don't know.
Oh, okay. Well, then Ren and I can give you a little bit of a summary of it.
Yeah, because basically, it takes place, I think, in like
Paris.
France, like Paris. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I see. You know, with the face, it kind of reminds me of the Elephant Man's bones, on how Michael liked to be compared to the Elephant Man bones as well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know if that's a good similarity, but...
So basically, I mean, if I remember correctly, I think there was a book. Yeah, there is a book actually that was called The Hunchback of Notre Dame, but the movie was apparently very different from the book itself. But so basically what happens is it takes place in Paris, and these gypsies were coming into Paris, and they had a baby, which was Quasimodo. And gypsies were considered evil by the authorities in Paris, and they were like taken into custody and things like that. And Frollo, who is the villain in the film, who actually thinks that he's good by getting rid of what he considers evil, he thought that the baby was stolen goods that the mother was trying to keep from the guards. And so she ran away, and Frollo was chasing her while he was riding his horse. And he grabbed the baby, and she was trying to prevent him from taking the baby. He kicked her, and she fell on the stairs and died in front of the church. And then when he found out that it was a baby, he looked at it and he said, a monster. And he was going to throw the baby into a well, and he said he was going to send it back to hell where it belongs. And the
priest.
The priest came out and prevented Frollo from doing that, and he said that since he committed the sin of murder, it was his responsibility to care for the child and raise it as his own. So Quasimodo, which it was a name that he named the child, which means half-formed, he actually lived in the bell towers
Of the
and
actual.
yeah, and he was never allowed. I'm sorry.
Which is actually a real place.
Yeah.
In France. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Quasimodo was never allowed to leave the bell tower ever. So, and actually, I think it's interesting how Quasimodo was never told that he was actually a gypsy.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was interesting. But, Quasimodo, there was a festival coming up, the Festival of Fools, and he always wanted to go to it because he would watch it every year from the tower. But he was always afraid to go out in public because no one else looked like him, and Frollo said that the world was cruel and it's wicked, and that Frollo was his only friend, even though Quasimodo doesn't know that Frollo tried to kill him as a baby. And he said that Quasimodo was deformed and ugly, and it was awful, But then Quasimodo decided to, I guess sort of wear a disguise, and he actually went to the festival, and a lot of the people at the festival thought that he was just wearing a mask.
Oh.
And so they had this thing where if you made like the weirdest face or the most frightening face or whatever, you would be crowned the King of Fools. Well, Quasimodo was pulled up on stage, and when they tried to, again, they thought his face was a mask. So when they tried to remove it and realized it wasn't a mask, that's when it kind of went downhill.
Mm-hmm.
Because at first, they were going to treat him like a king, but then the guards started throwing tomatoes at him, and then the crowd was like laughing, and they started throwing stuff at him, and of course Frollo.
And of course Frollo was the one that started up the whole thing. So
yeah, and he wouldn't stop it either. It was actually Esmeralda, the gypsy girl, who actually stopped the crowd from doing what they were doing. And she actually stood up for Quasimodo, and she is beautiful. She is a very beautiful gypsy.
She's one of the. I think honestly, she's one of the most underrated, but also very pretty Disney animated Disney characters.
That was a lot for me to absorb, but
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I mean, it sounds interesting. It's just that I haven't watched much movies in such a long time. Like, the only Disney stuff I saw were Snow White, Toy Story, the Cars, Happy Feet, and that's about it. Oh, and Wreck-It Ralph, of course, and Frozen, and Zootopia. Those are the only stuff I saw so far, and like Winnie the Pooh, but I never seen this one, unfortunately, so.
Yeah, it's a good movie, honestly.
It is a classic. I would definitely recommend it. But I guess what we can go ahead and do is, even though we didn't really get through the entire thing yet, but Ren, let's go ahead and start with you, since this was your idea.
Okay.
How would you like to, in a way, say that Quasimodo and Michael can kind of understand each other?
Yeah. So, let me pull up something real quick. On my computer right now. So, let's see. So, how this film relates to Michael in a way, and so far as the characters in it, like Quasimodo, personally, I think. Let's see. Let me scroll up and see. Let me see. I know it's in here. Okay. So, apparently, according to my knowledge, believe it or not, Michael Jackson actually wanted to voice Quasimodo in the Disney film. Now,
yeah, I just pulled it up on here.
Yeah. So, but this is why I can see why MJ wanted to play Quasimodo, because like in the film, Quasimodo was always very lonely and being judged by Claude Frollo, which is the villain in the film. So he was so lonely to the point that he created a whole city of what he saw from the bell tower, which is part of the cathedral. And that could very much be a representation of Michael's music that he created, because that was honestly, it wasn't allowed to be outside due to how he looks, which is manipulated by Claude Frollo, which represents Michael Jackson's relationship with like.
I also think that's why Michael created Neverland.
The media and tabloids, things like that.
Yeah, and it's almost like, it's kind of like...
maybe even his father, because his father was also very critical.
Yes, and I was also thinking that maybe that's why he also had all those mannequins.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because Quasimodo had the gargoyles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is like statues on the cathedral, by the way.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And with the gargoyles, they were really the only three friends that Quasimodo had. And if you remember correctly, there was a time when Michael said, I met a lot of people in my life, and very few are real friends. You can probably count them on one hand.
So, that being said, Esmeralda is Quasimodo's love interest in the film, because she saw the good in him and the talent that he had so far as, like, you know, building things and things like that, you know, and he sees him as a very special and kind, creative person, which represents someone that Michael maybe fell in love with, like Lisa Marie Presley as an example.
Or Brooke Shields.
Yeah.
And
or how
so,
he... Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And so, I guess so in conclusion, that makes total sense as to why Michael Jackson wanted to play Quasimodo, because in a way, he relates to the character and has a similar backstory in some cases.
Yeah, and I also think that the way that Quasimodo like loved Esmeralda because she saw the good in him, it's like how Michael loved his fans. Like, he knew that we loved him unconditionally and we were always here for him, and you know, and it is unfortunate though that that I guess in my opinion, I was actually going to talk about this in a separate video, but you know, like how in all the Disney films, like the person will end up with their love interest, but in this situation, Quasimodo does not get together with Esmeralda, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, unfortunately.
Sorry, spoiler.
Yeah.
But I will admit that. I will admit though, my favorite scene in that film is when Frollo tries to set Esmeralda on fire, and Quasimodo has to free himself from chains up in the tower. Like, that scene, it's so intense, but it's like, it's something that any of us would do it, like if Michael was in trouble or something like that. Because, like, for example, like when he's like, no, and then he's like pulling on the chains and everything, like that's literally how I felt in 2013 when Wade came forward.
Right,
you know. Like, that's when I started my research and everything, so I can definitely relate to it. And man, this is going to make such a great video. I can't wait to record this.
I'm trying to do the AI. It's AI.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else from the film. I think
this one's pretty dark, but so far as what I know, so everybody knows that Claude Frollo is a very religious man, but also like the villain, obviously. But
yes,
according to his belief, the thing that he struggles with most in the film is lust. And basically, like ever since in the movie when Esmeralda, like when she was like performing in the movie, he literally considered it as witchcraft because he thought he was like he literally had a freaking crush on her, and it was so weird because like old man. But like it.
Yeah, and so when Frollo had a crush on Esmeralda, like for anyone who hasn't seen the film, like Esmeralda is very young and beautiful, while Frollo is old and ugh. So, I mean, obviously I didn't think about this as a child, but as an adult, like when I think about that now, it reminds me of Hugh Hefner when he was going after women who were like way younger than him. Like I remember when he was in his 80s, he was trying to still pursue 18-year-olds. It was disgusting.
It sucks because like I feel so bad for Esmeralda. But yeah. Anyways, off track.
Well, I mean, it makes a good point though because like,
and it makes sense because like he also represents the mainstream media for constantly attacking and brainwashing people into thinking that he's the bad guy. Into thinking that he's the bad guy when that's not even true, and making fun of him on top of that, which is exactly what Claude Frollo does. And plus, Claude's lust for Esmeralda also represents literally the pedophiles and child sex traffickers of the mainstream media, which Michael Jackson was very much against because he hated seeing children being abused and harmed at such a young age just so adults could make a quick buck.
Exactly.
But they want to blame Michael for all that when Michael had absolutely nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
And I also think it's sad that he would always just assume that just because someone is different, it means that they're evil or they're below you and stuff like that. And that's why he would always like have gypsies arrested or even I'm trying to remember. I think he had them killed, didn't he?
All of them, yeah.
Yeah.
He planned to kill all the gypsies in the Court of Miracles, which is where the gypsies hung out under the grave.
Yeah.
The grave.
Yeah, he was actually searching for it for 20 years, and he had a hard time finding it, but he manipulated Quasimodo into leading him there, but by tricking him, actually, because what happened was he said, "I know where her hideout is, and tomorrow at dawn, I attack with 1,000 men." But he actually did not know where her hideout was, and he knew that Quasimodo would leave the tower, even though he wasn't supposed to, and he and Phoebus, who is, he was the,
he was the captain of the Royal Guard.
Yes. They both went to the Court of Miracles, and Frollo secretly followed them. I feel bad that we're kind of giving away the movie, but at the same time, it's so good to watch, though. So it's not like we're really ruining it.
God, it's alright.
But yeah, it's
Maybe put a disclaimer saying that warning contains spoilers to Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Yes.
I will. I'll probably save that at the very beginning of the video when I record it.
Yes, tired.
Check.
But yeah, I definitely. I didn't even think about it that way. And actually, if it weren't for Ren, I wouldn't even have known that Michael wanted to play Quasimodo because I had no idea. until Ren told me, like, I think it was like last month.
Yeah, it was like last month.
And I think Michael would have been perfect. And plus, like, when it came to the songs that Quasimodo would sing in the film, oh my gosh, like, I can only imagine how it would sound with Michael.
Oh, yeah. Like, if you got, like, AI or something, like, and just put Michael's voice over Quasimodo's, I swear to you, that would have been so perfect. Because, I mean, I know Michael isn't alive, and, you know, we all wish he was. But so far as AI goes, at least you can try to make it sound as accurate to Michael as possible. And honestly, I think I might actually do that with one of the songs from
that's a good idea.
I might actually do that because I'm just curious to know what that would sound like.
Oh, I
have the soundtrack to the Hunchback of Notre Dame. Like, I loved collecting the soundtracks from the Disney films. I have that one. I have Mulan. I'm trying to think.
Sure. How about a popular and recognizable quote from the Hunchback of Notre Dame? Sanctuary. This catchphrase is often associated with Frodo, the villainous judge who seeks to pursue and capture Esmeralda. It highlights the dark and intense atmosphere of the story, filled with moral corruption and social injustices.
Before I forget, I have to show Ren something.
One thing I also, that just popped into my head was that, like, at the Festival of Fools, like, at first when people were shocked that Quasimodo was there, you know, one of the gypsies said that Quasimodo had the ugliest face in Paris, which is what they asked for. But, and I'm not saying Michael's ugly, so don't twist my words. But then when the crowd is cheering because Quasimodo won, it reminded me of how the fans would always cheer for Michael and things like that. But then, like, when the guards were throwing tomatoes, all of a sudden, it kind of reminded me of, like, when the media would say, you know, forgive me, I'm just quoting the media, like, Wacko Jacko, or he had plastic surgery again, or blah, 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 or he's a pedophile. And then all of a sudden, like, the audience that started laughing went from MJ fans to MJ haters, basically. And then Esmeralda represented the fans who loved him unconditionally and stopped the haters from doing what they were doing, basically.
Exactly, yeah.
When's the Michael biopic teaser?
Okay, so I think that was the entire discussion on the stream, so now we're going to go into some things that I thought of afterward. Let's see. I already mentioned a couple. Okay, so if you haven't seen the film, since Quasimodo could see everything from the tower, he would create his own village, like Ren said. He would make everything out of wood, and it was amazing, you know? And even in one of the songs that Quasimodo sings in the film, one of the lyrics was, "All my life I wonder how it feels to pass a day, not above them, but part of them." And that reminded me of, like, what Michael went through, because he always wanted to know what it was like to just be the average Joe. You know, he would always say, like, how he always wanted to go to the movies or to an amusement park or even go into a grocery store just to go grocery shopping, you know, and those were things that he couldn't do just because he's Michael Jackson. Fans would either chase him or they would want to take pictures or ask him to sign autographs. And yeah, Michael loved doing that, but, you know, there were just things that he wanted to do that he just couldn't do. Now, obviously he did, and that's why I think that was part of the reason why he created Neverland, so that he could experience the things that he couldn't do, you know, outside of Neverland. And I thought it was nice of Michael's friend to shut down the mall so that he could go grocery shopping. Like, that was so cute. And also, I know to a lot of people, like, going to the grocery store really isn't that much of a big deal, but believe it or not, I can actually relate to that because, I don't get to go out that much, so whenever I do go to the grocery, like, I just enjoy just going through the store, I just love it. So I can definitely relate to that. And when Frollo said that Quasimodo was ugly, like, at first I couldn't remember if Joseph said that Michael was ugly, but I think there was a time when he did say it. I know he called Michael Fat Nose, and he would say, well, you didn't get that from my side of the family. You must have got it from Kate's side of the family. And to the fans, like, I understand that a lot of fans have issues with Joseph. For a long time I did too. But we have to remember that Michael forgave him. So, let's see. Oh, and there was even a scene in the film where Quasimodo is like, you're right, I'm going to go to the festival. I'm going to get cleaned up. And then I'm going to march through the doors. But then Frollo appears and he's like, good morning, Quasimodo. And Quasimodo's like, good morning, master. And that just reminded me of, like, when Michael said that he would feel very nauseous and he would, like, feel sick, like, when he would see his father, or he would faint and his bodyguards had to hold him up. And let's see. Give me just a... I want to make sure I don't forget anything, but I would say the one thing that really touched me the most after watching the film, this actually happened when I was a little girl when I watched the film. At the very end, when Esmeralda and Phoebus walk outside of the cathedral, the crowd is cheering and everything because they're the heroes of Paris and everything. Esmeralda tries to bring Quasimodo outside, and the crowd is, like, dead silent and all they do is stare. And then Quasimodo wonders if he's ever going to be accepted by people who they just don't look at the person on the inside, which is how Michael felt. Well, in the crowd, there was a young child who walked up the stairs, and at first Quasimodo was terrified, but then she hugged him, and he was so relieved, and I remember asking my parents, like, how come the child wasn't scared like the adults were? And my father said, well, Tanya, children are less judgmental than adults. I'll never forget that. You probably can't say that about a lot of kids these days, unfortunately, but I mean, that's true, especially in this case with Michael. Like, adults would look at him as a monster, pedophile, a freak, a weirdo, and all this other stuff. And they would also look at him as an ATM. But when it came to children, they just looked at Michael as, like, a big kid who wanted to have fun and everything, and they didn't ask for anything in return. And then the child took Quasimodo's hand and they walked down the stairs into the crowd. And then one of the gypsies said, 3 cheers for Quasimodo. And then the crowd starts cheering, and then they accepted him finally, and I mean, I don't know about you, but I always thought that scene it was almost like Disney didn't know, like, how to get the crowd to accept Quasimodo. That was the problem. It just seemed kind of random. Because all of a sudden, they're just dead silent. But then the gypsy says, 3 cheers for Quasimodo. And they're like, yeah! I was like, okay, well, all right. But anyway, at least the crowd finally accepted him, and things like that. And another important thing to understand is that even though some people made fun of Michael's plastic surgery, if people didn't make fun of him, whether if it was his cousins, his father, the media, or the tabloids, he most likely wouldn't have had the surgeries that he had, And, yeah. And, Quasimodo, he was a really great guy, both inside and outside, while Frollo was the exact opposite, And it's also in that one song, where the lyric is, who is the monster and who is the man? And obviously Frollo tried to basically make Quasimodo think that he was the monster and Frollo was the man, when I can honestly say it's the other way around. Yeah. So I think I covered everything that I could think of. But I just thought of something. Okay. And this will probably be the last one. If I think of anything else, I'll just do a part 2. If you've seen the film, you see how cruel Frollo is. But he raised Quasimodo as his son. But Quasimodo didn't turn out like Frollo at all, And it's kind of like how Joseph was very tough on Michael and his siblings and things like that. But when Michael became a father, he was the exact opposite. So, yeah, it's funny. Like, I've always loved that film. I still watch it even to this day. I watch it on YouTube. Like, I just love Disney, and I'm so thankful that Disney made that film. I really think it's one of their best creations. I really do. The music is beautiful, and oh my gosh, it is wonderful. Okay, so I think this was a really good episode. So let me know what your thoughts are on this, and yeah, let's have a great conversation in the comments. I love you guys, and if you're an MJ hater, then beat it.